This is Phantom Electric Ghost, and we're live on the air with Sheryl Hauk for the first time. We're going to talk about breaking decades of silence. You're an author, retired music educator, survivor advocate. You're the author of Piece by Piece, a memoir of survival, resilience, and the power of creativity, which is what we love to talk about on this podcast. And so I welcome you to the show. And how you doing tonight?
Doing great. Thank you so much for having me. Appreciate
Eh,
it.
Well, we've been talking to people since 2016, over 1,300 live interviews, and our focus is on creative space and creators and why they create and giving them a chance to tell their story. So, like in terms of what I usually ask people at the beginning of any episode is a couple questions like standard of everybody I talk to. What motivates you, and why do you do what you do?
What motivates me? If I didn't do it, I don't think I'd be here.
Mm.
Music has, from the very beginning of my life, in my book, you'll see one picture only. I was 18 months old sitting at a piano. And so it is what got me through my story that I'll share and I share in my book. It is what gets me through every single day is making music with others and seeing my students that I had over 41 years sharing music with the world. All of those things just keep me going. Um, they cause endorphins, we know that, which counteracts the cortisol that has been in my body from birth. And it enables me to live a life that is pretty full. And I truly feel that if music wasn't there, it would have a different picture.
Yeah, I think I've talked to a lot of creative people, from film directors to dancers, artists. Like that creative spark makes life work worth living. Like if you've gone beyond the permission structure issues that a lot of people have, like a lot of times people don't go into the creative space because they have this issue where they don't feel they're good enough. I ran into a lot of kids when I was like, I'm a child of the 70s, and I knew
Me too.
a bunch of kids in the late 70s, and we were watching MTV, listening to radio, and like some kids would say, "Oh, I can't pick up a guitar because I can't be Jimmy Page," right? So they
Mhm.
just wouldn't do it because they said, "Well, I can't match him, so I'm not even going to do it." Right? I can't match Elton John, so I'm not going to go on the keys at all. And then
Sure.
other kids were like, had the punk aesthetic, or like, why not? Like, I'm just going to do it because like I want to do it, and I feel like I have something to say. And is it kind of like
Yeah.
it's a wide spectrum in between.
Yeah, so I'm fortunate enough. I grew up in the Hawaii, the 50th state, and music was much more part of that culture and part of that world. So we weren't afraid sitting on the beach playing a ukulele or just singing or doing whatever we did. And that gave me the freedom of sharing it with other people. But honestly, doing it for myself, um, I didn't need permission. It was how I survived.
Yeah.
And even now, it's how I survive. On a really bad day, I sit down and I play the piano when nobody's around, when no one's listening, because it's just about me and the music. And I had this really great professor once. He said, and I'm a kid of the 70s. I graduated in 1980 from high school. He said, listen, and this is way back when, he said, you've got to listen to music of your students every time you go in the car. And I'm 63 years old. I'm still listening to the newest hits and the newest raps because he told me to do that. I
Yes. Yeah.
and so that music really makes me more connected to my
Mhm. Yeah.
students
The
and
kids.
to kids, but it also makes me more connected with who I am because I'm not the same kid that was in the
Oh yeah.
60s and 70s, right? So I need to grow as well musically. And it's not just music. My daughter is a professor of architecture of art. She has a BFA, and I
Mm.
was a fine arts director of fine arts and of performing arts. And I did musical theater. I have kids on Broadway for many, many years, and that just feeds my soul.
Yeah.
I
Art is so important in a world where there's all this STEM, which I'll give you a heads up. Like I am a software developer. I work in a startup. I've always kind of left right brain. So
Mhm.
I've always been a musician. I like podcasting, creative space, My wife is a playwright. My daughter is a graphic artist. So we've always my family, my grandpa, he was a coal miner, but he could play the banjo, he could play the piano, he could play anything.
Right, right,
So it was just kind of like we never thought of like that we couldn't do it. Kind of African American traditions, like, oh, if you feel the soul, then you do it.
right, right. Well, I don't think it's just African American. I mean, growing up in Hawaii, everybody made music, everybody danced. I mean, I grew up with Barry Obama, and we just all sat on the beach, and it was just part of our culture. It still is. And
Yeah,
when I came to the mainland and started teaching music to my football boys, who are now in the NFL, and they're like, "Oh, this is not cool." I'm like, "No, no, this will feed your soul."
it
And it
feeds the soul.
did.
Yeah.
It
Well,
did.
you need to have, like I said, like, a lot of people say it's like it's all about computers, and I understand that. I'm into computers, and they think it's all about engineering. It's all about that. It's all about mathematics. But music is
Mhm.
math.
It
But
is math. I taught AP Music, and my husband is an infrastructure architect for Disney, so I get the IT world. But what I said to my choir last night as we prepare for a big concert on Sunday, it's a community choir. I said, "Listen, guys, this is never gonna be perfect because 'cause we're not AI."
well, yeah. Well,
Right? So
that.
you're never gonna it's never gonna replace live music. It's just never going to do it
Yeah.
because we're human and make mistakes, right?
Well, the mistakes. I'm a big believer in the happy accident. If you talk to a
Mhm,
lot of and I've talked to a lot of musicians and producers, and if you look at the old music, if you go back, to 20s, anything's on vinyl, I think it was on the radio. But even like you get to the height of music, like the 60s to the 80s. And a lot of the producers will tell you it's like, it's a happy accident. It's like a lot of times it's a third or fourth take. Neil Young would talk
mhm,
about it, Zappa would talk about it. They a lot of times like the closer you are to the original, if you do like 100 takes, like the third or fourth take is probably closer to the truth of what you were trying to do.
mhm.
And the perfection trap of trying to make it perfect by take 101 tends to destroy it,
It
in my
does.
opinion.
It absolutely does. And not only that, now they have techniques that they can make the pitch right with
Oh,
the
yeah, the
pitch
DAW. The
and
DAW is like the
right, right,
enemy of creativity. It's like the undo button in the DAW. Like,
right.
I
It's
still use multi-tracks because I like to just play everything through,
well,
and
I love live,
and
just
I
like
just
your show. I love
yeah,
live because
and I just
it's
like to live
human.
record it. Like, if I and then people will say, "Well, how come your stuff sounds live?" Because I actually record it live.
Yeah, yeah. But it makes it human, and it makes it part of us, and it's what feeds our souls. It's not just the ones of us who are making it and being creative, who might have not had such a good childhood or needed a different journey than someone else, but it's not this music that is just made with all these adjustments. It's our heart, it's who
Yeah,
we
your heart and
are.
soul. I mean, it's like 'cause it's like the heart of like the singer-songwriter era. We get the Dylans and the Carole Kings and like all the great writers, right? And it was because of that vulnerability, the
Mhm.
authenticity and vulnerability. In
Yeah.
fact, like I was talking to one of Dylan's producers on he did Tangled Up in Blue, like the original version
Mhm.
of that whole album. Of So that whole album initially was just like very raw, didn't have a lot
Mhm.
of overdubs, and the engineer was like, "Yeah, this is really like the best," right?
Mhm.
It was a lot of the takes were like the band, he had to rotate bands because people would get frustrated because Dylan would keep on changing the song.
Right.
He was a
So
very
I
stream of consciousness and just kept on changing it.
so I live in Motown, right? I live in the same place Aretha Franklin. I taught Bob Seger's kids. I live where Motown is, where all of the greats are. And if you come to Detroit and you visit Motown and you look at the Motown Museum and how it started and how it was recorded, it's so authentic. It's about the people who put it together and
The Funk
what they
Brothers,
were all about.
like Barry Gordy with the Funk Brothers and the house bands they
Absolutely.
had. It's like
Absolutely.
the musicianship, and these guys were like jazz guys, they were
Oh,
like
yeah,
blues.
absolutely.
and they
We
had a lot
know
of chops.
yeah, so we know that jazz is one of the only original American music there is, right? All kinds of other music came from all over the world, but jazz is ours. It's
Yeah,
what expresses, and wasn't written down music. It
yeah,
was improvised music. It was what you were feeling at the time,
yeah,
to be able to play and
like flow state
create.
music, flow
Yeah,
state music.
absolutely. And I'm gonna correct you because I have kids who are still doing that. They're
I still
still
wanna do it.
playing jazz and they're still downtown. I had an Armstrong, Alana Armstrong. She comes from the Armstrongs, right? She's
Mhm.
still making music and she's been through a lot of trauma, but that music that she got to do with
It's
me and the
cathartic,
music she
cathartic.
does as a adult like me, it just heals that,
Well,
right?
it's
It gives
cathartic,
us,
like, you
yeah.
talk to singer-songwriters, you talk to musicians, and a lot of them will say, I'm gonna write a song whether it's a hit or not." Like, I do it because it's a cathartic
Oh, yeah,
process to
yeah.
whether or not it's the song that's gonna hit the chart doesn't really
Mhm,
matter. 'Cause, like, a lot of times, musicians have, like, these big libraries of stuff they do, right? And, what they weed out to actually put out to the world,
mhm.
that's a different process from the actual creation process. A lot of it is like sanity. Like, yeah, you are doing it because it keeps you level. Like, you are
Yeah,
doing it because
yeah,
it's a cathartic exercise, and you'll go like, I'll have, like, hours of stuff, and I've talked to tons of musicians that have these big archives, and
mhm.
a lot of times I'll try to push on them. It's like, the stuff that you're not putting out is, like, the best stuff ever.
Well, what's so cool now that wasn't when we were younger. So when I was starting to teach, maybe 40 years ago, and then up to about 20 years, you had to have a record label. So Ryan Irons was one of my students. She's kind of famous now. Well, she's not kind of famous. She is famous for
Mhm.
singing and being an actress in the African American community of politics. And when she started out and she was in middle school, it was like they had to go find someone to sign them. That was big.
Yeah, that's the
Now
thing.
you don't have to do that. You can make your music, you can put it on Spotify, you can put it on TikTok, and the
Uh,
world is the ones who are now saying, hey, that really touches my soul. That is like real cool. And that is what we've seen over both of our generations, the change, right?
Well, it's like the
So
gatekeepers are
different.
gone. Like,
Yeah.
and some people still want the gatekeepers because they wanna use that machine, but you don't
Oh,
have to
yeah.
because there's a TikTok machine, there's a YouTube machine, right?
Hmm.
There's like the word of mouth machine of, like, they actually going out and playing circuits, like, playing the music circuits and then getting a name by going and doing the work, right?
Yeah,
And
and some
people
of the
go and
biggest stars right now, that's the way it's doing it. I mean, they're in high school. I just listened to Noah, I forget Noah's last name, and he just was in a performing arts high school and he put something out and it went viral. And
yeah,
all of a sudden he is now a big star. So what's important about that is that us that make music and we're creative, now we don't have the boundaries that we
yeah,
used to have. And I think that's really important to teach kids and trauma survivors and all of us who do that is there are no boundaries. Go make your music, go
yeah.
paint painting,
It's
go sing your musical
But throw
song
it out into the
corner.
ether. Like, the whole thing
Right.
is, like, I love SoundCloud, like, because 'cause I'm a,
Yeah.
experimental musician.
Yeah.
I've been using it for, like, 15 years, like, 10 years, right? And a lot of times it's really cool. It's like a beta reader thing
Hmm.
because there are people out there, like, I got fans out there that they'll give me really good feedback like a beta reader gives an author. And
Absolutely.
they go in and they say at, like, 2 minutes and 33 seconds, "I like this." And they
Hmm.
give you really good detailed feedback, and it's like, "Well, that's great." It's not like when you throw it out and you get the haters say, "Well, I hate it." But what you didn't tell me why you hate it. It's like, if you
Yeah.
just hate it, what does that mean?
For real. I mean, and you can do things that aren't in the genre that's going to sell. I was sitting in the Kansas City airport yesterday, and some woman was sitting right across from me, and she started up the conversation, and she then went on and kept talking, but she talked about her daughter who was 45 in Europe, and she was making music out of sounds of birds and
Oh,
water
oh,
and
yeah, yeah. Like
you know,
field recordings,
outside the
like field
realm
yeah,
that
field
we
recordings.
we
Yeah,
do. do, right? So it's giving us even more creativity, more expression of who we are, like the Dylans or the Aretha.
Yeah.
And I'm, at first I was a little alarmed, but I'm really in my 60s now, excited that AI is not taking over. It's these
Well,
creative
it's a
young
tool.
people.
Yeah, it's a tool. I mean, the way I look, I mean, you think about like if you get into hip hop, when the MPCs showed up and the samplers showed up,
Oh yeah,
SP
yeah,
404s and stuff, right? And so that's the end. No, it's not because like every time, like even if you talk to Bob Moog, because I'm
right.
a big Moog guy, because I got a lot of Moogs, and the original purist musician said, "Well, that's not a real instrument. That's not a
I
piano."
remember that.
They
Yep.
like they hated it, but Sun Ra got one, right? Sun Ra was one of
Yeah.
the first. Like he was a jazz like experimental musician. He went to Bob, and Bob gave him one.
Yeah.
He got it, and it's like
Well,
people say, "Well, that's not real." It's like, yeah, well, what are you talking about? Wait, it's not real.
the conversation in education was, is rap music? And
Yeah,
I'm like, well, it's organized sound, so it's music,
it's music. It's poetry. It's poetry. I mean, it's
yeah,
like
it
it's
is.
poetry set to music, and it's like the sampling can be done at a level. Like if you think about like a De La Soul or like the Bomb Squad, you deal with like if you have a really good engineer or like DJ. What's good about DJs or hip hop producers is they look for hooks and then they layer them like sound paintings.
Oh, absolutely.
And then the
Absolutely.
really good ones can layer and have all these sub layers and it starts to build. And it's like George
Um,
Martin. George Martin and Hendrix talked about sound painting. Hendrix
mhm.
talked about an Electric Lady, and George Martin talked about it with the Beatles because he used some Peter Sellers techniques
Well,
for
it's not
changing
so
people.
different than what Beethoven did, right? He
Yeah,
just layered these
layers.
different things going on, and so it's just different layers, and that's what makes music cool is to be able to take all those things and then layer and then put your own on top. I love I know it sounds crazy, it's old song, but I love The Rose,
Yeah, that's a good
by
song. Matt Miller.
right? Um, no, no,
Her
not The
version.
Rose. I is it In the Rose? It was by Sting, and
Oh,
he
sorry.
took Arabic music and he put rock music on top of that, and then
Oh,
he put
genre,
I mean,
like
it was
colliding genres,
just
yeah.
so cool, right? He just put all these things together, and they're doing that now. I think, Sapphire is the new song out that has Punjabi in it, and it
Yeah, well,
has
mixing
rock in
cultures
it,
is so
right?
important because, like, I love progressive rock bands like Genesis, Yes, Emerson, Lake and Palmer because I appreciated they're taking classical forms, they're doing movements, doing 15, 18-minute, 20-minute songs.
Mhm,
They're full of movements, key changes, rhythm changes, and
mhm,
I got taught doing classical music, so, like, I appreciated those bands. 'Cause they
mhm,
like it's like, "Oh, wow, they're mixing, like, psychedelic rock, like Pink Floyd, and blues, and
mhm.
classical, and jazz." It's all kind of mixed together, and they're telling stories, and they're being,
Right,
like, theatrical like Pete Townsend. They're trying to do like Tommy. They're trying to
right.
do like rock operas like Quadrophenia. They're telling these big stories that don't just fit a single.
Well, and those stories, so back to my student who wrote the Avatar video game that I told you about, and did a whole bunch of other things, Christian Colo. He came to me when he was 14. He goes, "I want to tell a story in my music. I love music. I just want to tell a story." And I'm like, "Okay, but it can't be a run-on story. You have to tell a story." And
Mhm.
these people who are taking these movements and they're taking the rules and listening to those other types of genres and then being able to absorb it is, again, I don't think AI is going to take over music.
No,
My
because
husband
AI is like, to me, with
Mhm,
computers is a general idea. Garbage in,
mhm,
garbage
right.
out.
S-
And
so we're talking about creativity, we're talking about how important it was to me. I mean, you asked one question, but for us that went through trauma as children, this creativity is often better than drugs and
Oh,
alcohol.
yeah.
It
Yeah.
just
Playing
saves
a
us.
piano or playing a guitar, using your voice because your voice is an instrument,
Absolutely.
you
Absolutely. And our
is like
listeners need to know that. I mean, it is what will save you.
yeah,
Um,
totally.
I It will. It did me, maybe you, so many of us, because the physical things that happen to us when we're creating, making music, doing these really cool things, the physical of these kids who are struggling, being creative can not just be, oh, I'm creative, but it physically changes your brain and
Yeah.
your nervous system
Well, it
and
gets you
all the things.
you
Yeah,
spend a lot of time with the fight or flight, right? And if you're always getting triggered and you don't find a recovery mechanism, like you see an animal like it shakes it off, like
right.
music is how you shake it off, right?
Yeah,
Music
it's that strategy, it is. And we know with fight, flight, fawn, or freeze, you don't have a choice what you do, but
mhm.
then you have a choice on
How you
what you
gonna
do,
how are you gonna
right? How are
react?
you gonna react? Are you gonna create something really cool, or are you gonna go and, take a shot? And I'm not saying that taking a shot is ever bad, but, music is gives
It's
you
an
those
alternative.
endorphins,
Yeah, I mean,
right?
because it really starts to give you like, I've been with musicians and we're on stage and people are like, "You went into the zone." Like,
Right.
you get into the zone, and somebody filmed it, and then you say, "Well, do you know what you were doing?" I say, "No, because I was in the zone." Because
Mhm.
like, you get so keyed in to
Yeah.
the frequency of the band, you get keyed into the frequency of the room, the frequency of the crowd, and, if you're playing, like, experimental music or, like, fusion jazz, you are able to kinda, like, live in the moment.
Well, I don't think it's just that. I mean, I've conducted orchestras and pits for musicals, and I think you do the same thing. I mean,
Yeah, yeah, if you're zoned in on
I
either a
don't think
practice, like,
it's
yeah,
one genre or another.
or another.
It's making that music. And what's interesting is that my son became a social worker psychologist who's really into music. He loves going to those music festivals. He's 29. And he says to me, I said, I am the happiest when I'm in the pool and I'm just singing and the music's going. And he goes, Mom, do you know that when you're in the water, that the frequencies that are making you feel good are 10 times as strong in the water? And I'm like, I don't know that.
I didn't know
Okay.
that.
So, yeah. So apparently, I mean, now they're studying the frequencies that we're making and we're listening and what they're doing as a positive effect on our bodies. And I wish I'd known about it 20 years ago, but I do
Yeah.
know about it now.
Well, do you think every musician kinda sees the result of their frequencies or their rhythms, like, an immediate, like, response when they're playing live? Like,
Yeah.
they can see how the crowd reacts if you get you have one of these songs that's like, it's a love song, everybody's got their lighter out. If you're in a punk
Well,
rock band,
that's a pretty high. I gotta tell you, when I retired after 41 years, all of my alumni came back for the Christmas concert, and we always did sleigh ride. It's ridiculous, but I have 400 kids and adults singing sleigh ride, right? I mean, the endorphins going in my body just can't
mm,
get higher. Nobody had a flashlight or whatever, but having all of these incredible young people singing a stupid song like sleigh ride just
yeah, well,
just
it does,
really
like,
did
you get
it.
into that kinda harmonious, like, universal key. Like,
Yeah.
once everybody gets, like, into that tune, whether
Mhm,
they're fully in tune, but it's like if you're involved, music
mhm,
can get the audience involved. Right?
mhm.
It's like a team, it's a group social behavior. I was a sociology major, like, it's a macrocosm thing, right?
Yeah, it's not just about who's performing, it's about who's part of that moment.
Yeah. I mean, it's a microcosm thing too, because, like, in the author, you put something out in the world and the reader gets it, they interpret it,
Mhm,
right? So it kinda becomes how they experience it. So you
mhm,
created that piece of music, it was very cathartic for you. It might have
mhm.
meant something to you as the writer, but once you give it to the world, everybody that listens to it gets their own vision of or
Version.
version
Yeah,
of what it means to them, which
yeah,
is really cool. I you know, but
yeah,
I always, like, wonder, like, the
absolutely.
musicians trying to dictate, like, what the meaning is. It's like, you don't own that anymore.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. I know that. And then somebody's gonna take your sample. I have
Yeah,
one student, he's doing really well. He's a DJ, goes all over the United States, and he just samples all these music in his own interpretation of what that moment while everyone's dancing needs to be.
Yeah, I mean,
So,
that's kinda what the groove specific, because a lot of DJs become really good record producers.
yeah, yeah.
Because they can actually come in and they can figure out, like, how they're actually going to, get those grooves to be, like, viral. Because
Mhm,
they immediately see when they have these big 300,000, 500,000, like, these really big DJs,
mhm,
they know what moves the crowd. So if they
mhm,
start to produce a record, they say, "Well, I know what's actually gonna work."
mhm.
So I can
Yeah.
string these things together like any good record producer. Like they teach you, like, well, you could voice that different, you could phrase that different, you could change the timing, you could do this intro, you could do this, that, you could build the song structure. The thing I
Mhm.
wonder today is some songs don't have as much structure. And that's just maybe what it is, because like we have a lot of people using
They
DAWs and
don't have as much structure for us musical people. I will say I've had people who will give me their music and say, "What do you think?" And it goes on for 30 minutes, and I'm like, people like structure. I hate
yeah,
to say that, but
yeah,
people like structure.
take it through,
So I
yeah,
think
standard, right?
more successful musicians, besides making music for themselves, if they want it for the world, they have to have some structure.
Yeah, you
People
have
like
to
it,
basically, if you build it like a Beatles song, right? They like the king of
right?
pop, like, or you build it like a Motown. Right. They're the kings of those, like, short form stories and
Right.
having
And they're very simple. I mean, they're the same 3 chords, 4 chords over and over. They're just created a different way, which is also interesting to look at. You know, rock has, until recently, the same 3 chords, maybe different keys, but a different melody. All of those, I wanna say hundreds of thousands, but maybe even millions of songs that have been created on 3 chords.
yeah, 3
It's
chords.
just amazing.
Yeah, and then you get, like, the virtuosos that come up with different voicings, or they go a little
Uh-huh.
more into
Or
jazz
layers,
layers.
right?
They decide to do a little bit more interesting voicings, a little interesting
Right.
structure, and you get, more interesting pieces because they
I
had to have more classical to it, more jazz to it, but
Yeah, I like to look at Hamilton, the musical Hamilton. I just saw it for the first time, even though I'm a musical theater person, and just look at the creativity in Hamilton, the musical, and how he created this musical that had so many genres and told this unique story. It's just fantastic.
right, I think like we were talking about survivors, and you in terms of like your book, like piece by piece, and like we were talking about, a lot of musicians, they use the nature of creativity to be very cathartic, and then
Mhm.
you have to be vulnerable. Like any artist, like kind of leans into their vulnerability when
But
they
you
tell
also
this.
have to share your voice,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, that's the thing. It's like, how do you like have that line of like what's private, what's personal, and what's vulnerable, and then authentic, and then run that path so it's it doesn't hurt you, but it
Right.
elevates you.
Well, that's why the book is named Piece by Piece, because it doesn't happen just with one thing happening or one song you wrote, or it's piece by piece. You have to build it. And I encourage people, I know we're close to out of town, but to read the book and see how you can build it and you can find creativity and share it with the world.
Yeah, I think like, well, one thing like that I always like, the permission structure of like, oh, is it good enough? Like that good enough issue, or that like, it's like kind of like you just imposter syndrome. Like you don't think that you're
That's
actually
funny. I wish I had time to talk about that because me and my conductor friends and composer friends, we all feel like we're imposters.
oh
We talk about that
all the time, all the
all the
time.
time.
We have a little
So,
time, man. I don't have to go to the next one till 6:30, so I got like
okay.
20 minutes.
I have friends who are very famous composers in the world, jazz composers, actually, vocal jazz. And they're in my book, Greg Jaspers and Frank Tincelli from USC. And
Mhm.
we all talk about it. We sit with a glass of wine and we talk about how we all feel like imposters. And I think people need to know that. Even the greatest Bob Seger sometimes feels
Yeah.
like imposter, like, oh, I'm just pretending to be this good.
Oh, yeah, Hendrix
And
was well known for that. I mean, Hendrix
yeah,
didn't
we
like his
all
voice at all.
are.
He didn't like his voice at all.
No,
He would like
Oh,
have like curtains on him and like blankets up. He didn't want to see anybody. He knew he could play guitar. He wasn't worried about that, but he
right.
was worried about his voice.
Well, most of us are. It's like when we hear it recorded, we're like, "Whoa, that's not us," right?
Yeah.
I'm a singer, and so I
You always have
didn't
that like
sing for a long time,
how you listen, how you hear yourself is like,
right?
are you like your own worst critic because like you're comparing yourself to all these like known singers, like the
Well,
known voice.
here's the thing about our voice. Our voice is the most personal thing we could give anyone. It is the most personal thing. No one has a voice, even if you have a twin, no one has a voice that's exactly ours. And
Mhm.
so, in order to give that voice, whether it is advocacy or singing a song or whatever, you have to feel the safest that you can be. And that's what I did with choirs is make an environment where kids felt safe, but
There's a
all
lot
of
of
us, even to get on a podcast, you have to feel like I am worth something. I'm not an imposter. I'm not, even though I went through trauma, I'm not a victim. I'm a survivor. And I can share that voice in singing. I can share that voice on a podcast. And this is something that's really important for listeners to know because we all feel like, oh, nobody wants to hear us. No one
yeah,
cares.
yeah.
Everybody feels that way.
But
And even Mozart did. I mean, Mozart had a really hard time sharing his music, right? If you know anything about,
yeah, a lot of times when you're a
Amadeus.
genius, when you're on the cutting edge, if you're doing something nobody's really heard before, then you're
Oh,
kind of like you're
yeah.
wondering
Are
like
they
how
going to
people are
like
gonna
it?
take it. Yeah, like
Right?
how are people gonna take that? Because like a lot of times what people do is like, you see the cat video. It's like everybody's got a cat video. You're actually even told to use the same music as the last person used. It's like so the
Hmm.
algorithms kind of encourage you to just clone. Like
Hmm.
the internet and the tech is interesting, but a lot of it is about cloning. Like
Yeah.
part of the AI problem is like you go to do some logo work and you get the AI done, and like 100 other 1,000 companies use the same stuff. So
Well,
if you
Taylor
really want
Swift
something
just,
different, then you need a real
yeah.
artist.
Yeah, Taylor Swift just yesterday, I don't know if you heard, but she took her voice saying, "I am Taylor Swift. Hey, Taylor Swift," and she copyrighted it so that they couldn't do what you're talking about,
Yeah.
right? She wants her voice to be out there. So again, this voice issue is really huge, whether it's singing, creating sounds, or even telling your story. You have to feel safe. You
Yeah.
have to feel okay that you're worth listening to. And I think that's not a message that's out there enough.
No,
Um,
because a
y-
lot of people would like say that, well, you're like, why are you, there's this whole idea like an anti-empathy, anti-introspection,
mhm,
like this idea that if you have an idea like the Victorians, the looking glass self,
mhm.
self-examination, introspection, empathy for your fellow man or woman, like that somehow that's weak. And people are told to be like, oh, you gotta be like ultra.
Well, we got to stop, especially for you, as a man, African American man. Yeah, you're told you have to be strong, you have to not be weak, but we do need to share our voices or things happen in our society or music is not created. It is so important. I bet there's someone sitting out there who is um, just feeling like, oh, I'm not good enough. I'm not good enough, and they are good enough and
Yeah,
we want to hear them and
that's the
they
secret
have
sauce.
something to share with us. It's important that we recognize that.
But it's important, like you said, like educators and parents and mentors, they have to create a safe space. I try to do that with the
They
podcast.
do.
They have a space for people to talk about their ideas, their vision, and not be hypercritical of like, oh, is this hot or hot? These people are like what's hot or what's not hot. Like everybody's doing these top 10 lists, this, top that. And I'm like, I've always listened to like if you're looking at these big charts, like I was always listening like to college radio. I was
Mhm.
listening to, the stuff on the bottom 500 of the chart
Right.
or stuff that didn't even chart. I'm listening to like unknown bands. I was listening like Lou Reed and the Velvets, like Alex Chilton and Big Star, and all these like like television like bands that didn't really make it, right? Like
Hmm.
I've always really was really interested in like why didn't that make it? And then you come to find out that the guy like a David Bowie loved Lou Reed and kind of resurrected his career. Could even listen to the Velvet's stuff in '66. And
Mhm.
then he helped him on Walk on the Wild Side and helped him kind of go viral, go and get big because he actually loved what he was doing when no one loved it. Like a lot of producers, a lot of high end people loved what the Velvets were doing, but like all these producers loved it, but the public didn't.
Yeah, so again, now it's so different than we grew up, right? Now they have the ability to put it on Spotify, to put it on TikTok, to put it, share it with the world, and really that's what's changing things now. Students going out and or adults going out and putting it on. I've seen it on YouTube and Spotify,
Yeah.
and really going to look at this music. And I think the music industry needs to reevaluate because soon, and I think they're starting to reevaluate soon, people aren't going to bother to be listening to the top 10 anymore.
Yeah,
Um,
if you look at the engagement, people are going back and they're listening to
mhm.
their older music, and they're actually going and looking for the newer bands. Back in the day, I was looking at REM before they
Yeah,
got big, or bands
yeah,
like Husker Du or Paul Westerberg and the Replacements. I was listening to a lot of like underground indie music stuff on Sub Pop, stuff on IRS, all these small labels. I was
yeah.
like all over, like I wasn't listening to the big labels. I was going purposely looking for Sub Pop and IRS and all these small labels that had these like minor bands, but these minor bands suddenly blew up. A lot of them started to blow up and get big, like
And
Nirvana was in Sub Pop.
they're starting
And
to do the same thing now. But the problem back then was then the record labels are saying, "Well, maybe we want you to change it this way, or maybe we want you to add this." And I think now there is more ability to be more creative
oh, they keep it the
because
way in the original
they're
vision.
not those parameters that the record companies are giving as much.
Yeah,
And
because the problem is, like, you get these engineers, they try to tell Hendrix not to do the feedback, right? Yeah, Eddie Kramer finally said, "Well, yeah, let's do it." But the first couple engineers, when he did it, "Oh, you don't put that on record." And
yeah,
Hendrix's, like, vision was, "Yes, it is going on record." Like, he knew what he wanted. So if
right.
you're a person knows what you want, but if you hesitate and you let, like, the people in the whole, and, the people are part of, the structure, the part of the whole, continuum of, oh, this is the standard.
Mhm.
So if you come in like Dylan, like he was at that folk festival when he went electric. He's like, that's a folk festival. You're not supposed to go electric. And he's like, I don't
He
care.
was brilliant,
I'm
he
just
was
gonna do
brilliant.
just gonna do
He
it.
was brilliant, right? He was brilliant. And I think things have, again, changed. I have a student right now, he's, at University of Michigan, and he's in the technology of music. He's a brilliant composer himself, but I think that engineers and those people who are doing that now are much more musically educated than the ones when we were growing
Back
up.
then,
We
yeah.
sang songs in elementary school, right? What do we know about layering things? What do we know? But again, it's about being
Yeah.
creative
Well, you
and
gotta
and
break, we kind of did something like if you gotta learn to get your 10,000 hours, get your 20,000 hours, and then but then again, sometimes amateurs can come in like with the punk aesthetic. The whole idea with like the Clash and the punk bands,
they
like the
can do
Ramones.
some amazing things. I
Yeah,
have a friend who's a choir teacher. Her husband teaches music in a junior band, and their son, who's been growing up with music and creating music all his life, is now doing Pink Eye. Is that it? He's the engineer for Pink Eye, right? He has no experience except for all this experience of listening to all
yeah, I
these
think
different kinds
sometimes
of music.
if you're a good listener, it's like you might experiment. Like, if you're the professional, you
Right,
might go and look at the board and say, "It's never supposed to go out of this range."
right.
But if you're
But
like an Orson Welles type of guy, right? Like, Orson Welles didn't know what he couldn't do with the camera,
mhm,
right? Orson Welles on Citizen Kane said, "I didn't know what I couldn't do. So I got a
mhm,
photographer that said, 'Let's try this. Let's try that.'" I didn't care about what the rules were.
right,
Sometimes having somebody that doesn't know it will go and
mhm.
try things that the guy that knows it will never try, and then you always get the same thing.
Right. But again, it's all building it piece by piece. It doesn't just you might have a brilliant idea, but you're always building. And sometimes that building gets crashed down by somebody, but you can build something new from that.
Oh yeah,
Again, that's what's my book talks about is how you can build something new,
like
how
fail
you can
upward. In
yeah.
IT, we call it failing upward. Like we always like we have so many implementations or incremental development, and there's all this stuff on the cutting room floor. But
Mhm.
we have lessons learned. We go through and we look at what didn't work.
Mhm.
And it's not trash because it didn't work. Maybe it's gonna work over here, or maybe it's
Right.
gonna work over there. So everything
Right.
you ever did is valuable. It's not
Mhm.
garbage. It's like, even if that didn't make any money, that one idea could go contribute to something that suddenly makes $1 billion. Yeah,
Yeah,
because it didn't
absolutely.
belong over here. It belongs over there.
Mhm. Right, absolutely. And those kids, and not even kids, anyone out there listening needs to understand that that's the way life is, right? It doesn't mean it's trash. It just means that you keep it there and you use it and you create and you can make something really, really special from it.
I think it's really good to give people hope, because I think what I like about art is that you see everything that's in the news, you see all this headlines, you see all this stuff, but art doesn't matter. Like, you turn off the TV, get rid of the noise, you get rid of all your phone.
Mhm.
And if you go and you're a painter and you're on the canvas, like, that is its own world. If you're
Yeah,
a
it
poet
is.
and you write that poem, that's its own world. The writer, that's its own world. The dancer, that new dance routine, that's its own world. And
Mhm.
all those things, those worlds, they actually make it worth getting up every day
Mhm.
and look at that instead of the noise.
Right. Well, and the other thing is, I love the word hope that you used. If we have nothing else with all the crazy going on in this world, hope is the one thing humanity can have. And I think by creating music and creating, it gives us hope. It
Yeah.
does.
And don't let the
So,
tech bros tell you that there's like no creators aren't needed. 'Cause
oh yeah, absolutely not.
I had a tech
Absolutely
bro
not.
come on and tell me that AI knew all human knowledge. It's like, how could it know all human knowledge? Because not everything's ever been recorded, and
Well,
what
that person doesn't know what they're talking about. That's all I have to say.
so they wanted that. They said, "Well, I don't think that we'll need musicians and actors because we can just, use generative AI to create all that." I said, "Well, I
Well,
understand
have
why
you
you
got
say
out
that."
of your chair and stopped coding and maybe gone to a musical
Yeah.
or listened to a concert, live concert? Yeah, he
Well,
doesn't
they
know what
wanna
he's
be the
talking
profit
about.
center. They say they want the AI. It's just basically trying to sell that widget to everybody.
Well, they want it to be easier and then make money off of it, but that is not about what we do. It
Yeah,
is
so it's
not
all
what
about
we
easy.
do,
Easy is not art.
and
Art
they
is
don't understand that.
it's like going and telling people, "Go use this program because you can make music easier." Like, every musician would tell you, like, it's supposed to be hard. It's like the effort to you to craft that song, sometimes it's effortless, but it's not, so a lot of times it's not, right? So it's actually going through that process
Yeah, yeah,
that's important,
absolutely.
you know?
Yeah, for the person who's creating it. So it's benefiting two things. It's benefiting the person who's creating it, but it's also benefiting the world.
Yes.
So you have two outcomes with making music. And AI is never gonna do that. I'm telling you, it's never.
It's not
I've had
censored.
this
It
discussion
doesn't have pain.
over and over.
It
And
doesn't.
it may take your job as an IT guy, but
Yeah,
it's
right.
not gonna take my job as a musician.
No, and even the IT, it doesn't, because it goes and deletes the whole database by, when you told it not to.
They are having some problems with it, aren't they?
Yeah, it's supposed to be so smart, and then why did it delete the database?
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely.
So it's like, every time they think they can get rid of people, like, I've been in this world a while in IT, and they had all these ideas, all this automation, all this stuff. 20 years ago, they said it's going to take Y2K. They said, oh, all this tech's going
Oh,
to
I
take away the
remember
industry.
that.
But
Yeah,
then
yeah.
guess what happens?
Nothing.
People like me, like, I know old languages like COBOL and stuff. They say, oh, we're going to get rid of all the COBOL guys. Guess what? I get paid a lot of money to go do the
Uh-huh.
cobalt because nobody knows
Yeah.
what it is, right? So they always go and they say, "We can get rid of all these old timers," and they end up hiring them as consultants for more money than they paid them. So
Right.
so that's kind of the way the world works. Like, they tell you the stock shareholders all this stuff, but then when it comes down to it, it's like, that's not the operational things that are going on, right? So
Oh,
you guys are telling me one
we
thing.
can go farther back, right? With horses and cars, right? We're
Yeah,
not not wanting cars because now there are not gonna be any horses and all those jobs are gonna go away. Yeah, well, then we made more jobs in factories. Well, now we're not gonna have cars, we're gonna have airplanes. So cars will go. Yeah,
yeah, they never went away.
we've we've been around long enough to know that that is not
And
what's really happened.
absolutism usually doesn't work because that's not how things go.
Right. But music has been always part of it's been part of humans. I mean, we've just found very, very ancient music, that it was language that probably was around before, possibly with
Oh,
Neanderthals, before speech.
yeah, language
So
was probably the core before speech. It was like the
right.
vocalizations that were
S
more like music, were the
right.
beginning point of
That's
language.
right. That's right. So music is not going anyplace. Being able to create it and letting it heal you. The arts, we need more people to support it because it's never been there are a few people who make really good livings at it, but not most of us.
Yeah.
Um,
Well, we need to
but
make it like I lived in Japan for a while, and there was a lot of respect for artists when I was in Tokyo. Like, what I
mhm,
noticed was they did not, like, denigrate the artist at the level I see happening here. That
right,
there was, like, there's encouragement of, like, art, and it was thought of like, that's not something that's unuseful to society. That it's
right.
actually very useful to society.
So my daughter has lived in Japan for many, many years, and I am from Hawaii, which is that culture. And there are so many things that may not be what America is, but there's also that respect for artists. It's respect for people working. They don't tip in Japan. Why? Because if you're working, you're getting an earning wage,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah. Well, you're supposed to
So
you should get enough money to live.
there's something to be learned from that. But
Yeah.
again, for our listeners, it's a better option to create than it is to self-medicate. That's
Oh,
what I
yes.
need them to
Definitely.
know.
Yeah, I think that's a really good thing to say because a lot of times people think, well, artists are all getting medicated, and that's not exactly the truth. Um,
No, it's not.
and so, like, art is there might be something else that caused that to happen, right? It might be because the
Mhm.
way the career was going and the way the machine was pushing the artist, they might have got pushed into it, right? Because
I
of, like,
think there's more to it. I think that, we know that trauma that happens as a child,
mhm,
really changes the brain. And we know that music can fix it, but it's not gonna ever fix it.
that affects everything. Yeah.
That's right. And
Can't
and
fix
so,
everything. There's other
uh,
core things. Yeah.
and that's what my book is about. It's about accountability of making childhood less traumatic and how to use creativity to heal those things that have might have happened.
Well, I think that's important. We don't want to give away everything in the book. We've been kind of skirting around it, but, like, I do believe, like, we've been kind of alluding to it. Um, so, like, the idea that music can be a healing power that everybody
Absolutely.
can access, and it's a matter of, like, just trying it. Like, go out, getting some drums, go out,
Mhm.
get whatever instrument appeals to you. You could start with your voice because you don't have
Mhm.
to pay for that, right? And
That's right.
you can start with your voice. You can start with something you have interest in, and you have to put the work in. Like, learning a guitar, you're gonna have some challenges. It's hard to do.
Mhm.
It's like learning any instrument in winds, all the instruments
Mhm.
that exist. There's a certain level of commitment that's required to get that payback. And so
Mhm.
once you get that, put the commitment in, then you open up a whole world of possibilities, but you do have to put some work in. And the problem with the AI is it's telling you don't have to do that.
Mhm.
And that's why I
Absolutely.
rail against that because I think you need to actually put a little effort in.
Yeah. Yeah, I think you're right.
But I've got your QR code. We didn't mention that, but that's up there, and it has the title on it. So people scan that right now. People go to your website. That's how they find out about your book and everything else that you're involved in.
Yep, absolutely. So please scan it and then reach out if you have any questions. There is a contact page that you can talk to me. And I really appreciate you spending time and talking about music. It's my most favorite thing to talk about.
Well, it's great. I love talking to musicians and creative people because that's kind of my jam. But want to thank you for being here with us today, and have a great rest of your evening. This has been live on LinkedIn, YouTube, and Kick. We will be on Apple Podcast, Spotify Video Podcast, iHeartRadio, Amazon, many of other channels. We'll create a landing page for the audience, and people can go replay it wherever they feel like they want to, on whatever platform they like the best. But I want to thank you for being on the show.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.